Here's something most people don't know. When you leave an abusive relationship, the abuse doesn't stop. It shifts. It moves from your kitchen, your bedroom, your bank account, straight into your attorney's office, into your custody hearings, into every legal motion filed against you. It's called post-separation coercive control. And most attorneys don't even know what it is. My guest today is one of the rare ones who does. She's a certified coercive control trauma-informed attorney and divorce mediator, and who's built her entire practice around this radical idea that what if divorce didn't have to destroy you? What if resolving your family legal nightmare could actually be peaceful? She's known as the compassionate divorce attorney, and she's here to show you that being compassionate doesn't mean being weak. It means being strategic enough to win without starting a war. Welcome back. Welcome to Divorcing Strong, the podcast that pulls no punches when it comes to divorce. I'm Becky Sampson, better known as Bulldog Becky Brockovich, and I'm here to give you the straight talk, the strategies, and the subpoena secrets you won't hear anywhere else. With expert guests and proven advice, you'll learn your rights, your options, and gain your power that encourages a fair and equitable outcome. Divorce doesn't have to break you. It can build you. Let's get to it. Well, welcome everybody back to another episode of Divorcing Strong with Becky Sampson. I'm your host. And it's been about a week since we did our last podcast, and I know we had multiple ones in one day. But this guest today, we connected a couple weeks ago, and what a beautiful soul she is. That she does what she does with high conflict, and can we have a different approach? Which some of you know, and I've shared with you before, that my degree is actually in peace building and negotiations, mediation, and peace building, basically, because how can you go through a really hard divorce, and especially when it's high conflict, and have a different perspective to be able to come still from your heart? I hope that that's kind of where this is going to go today, because I know that that is a secret weapon that a lot of people do not take advantage of going through divorce, because we're really taught that it has to be so combative. And I believe that one of the reasons why I made it through my highly contested divorce was because I was able to keep my heart soft towards him and towards others involved in the divorce. And it was hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is possible. So we're going to talk about those kind of items. If you're dealing with someone that's difficult, if you're dealing with a family member, or you're even dealing with kids, how do we navigate those waters properly so that we are able to come out on the other side stronger? So if you've been following this show for any length of time, you know I believe in two things: grace, grit, and integrity, and finding the right people to put in your corner. Today's guest is someone I wish every woman in a high conflict divorce, or man, I should say, could have on speed dial. Jolee Vacchi is the founding attorney of Foundations Family Law and Mediation Center, based in Worcester, Massachusetts. She's a collaborative trained attorney and certified divorce and family law mediator. And here's the credentials that stopped me: a certified coercive control trauma-informed attorney. She built a practice whose entire philosophy is resolving family law disputes as painless and peaceful as possible. And she's about to show you exactly how. So welcome to the show, Jolee.
Hi, Becky. Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. As I always like to thank my guests, because this is not an easy space to be in, and especially when you're dealing with the high conflict. And I have to say, there's not a lot of attorneys that give a lot of attention to this. And so I'm grateful that you're willing to come on and talk about this subject, about how to deal with high conflict, but the most peaceful way possible.
Yes, that's the key, because family court is not a fun place to be. And it can be really expensive. You can spend years there. And if we can keep clients out of there, I think that can be really positive for the family and for children, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we kind of really dive into this subject, what's the backstory? I love asking the questions. What's the backstory? What got you into law, maybe even family law, and what made you kind of go into this one specific area with dealing with the coercive um, control with
Yeah.
divorce?
It's kind of strange. I didn't know any attorneys. I don't come from a family of attorneys, but
Mhm.
as a little girl, I saw Law and Order and Ally McBeal, if you remember that show way back in the day. And I saw them on TV and said, that's what I want to do. I saw being a lawyer as like being a helper. And
Mm.
so that was my goal throughout my childhood, was to go to law school. And I interned actually in high school with a family law attorney, a divorce attorney. And she became my mentor, my idol. And she now is a family court judge that I practice in front of. So that really has become a full circle moment for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is what I wanted to do. I became passionate about family law. So in law school, I took every family law course I could. Domestic violence law. That's where I became a certified mediator. Was in law school. I was working in Rhode Island Family Court in the mediation unit. And so family court has always been the area of law that I wanted to go into. And so I've worked at, various family law firms. And then 3 years ago, I decided to hang my own shingle. I wanted to do things my own way. I'd previously worked at, firms that were very litigation heavy, focused on, aggressive trial practice, and kind of like the traditional way that we handle divorces. And I really wanted to start at a place where we can focus on solutions and trying to resolve cases instead of just filing straight in court. And that's when I set up Foundations Family Law. And how I got into the coercive control was I have a lot of domestic violence survivors who are
Mm.
my clients. And then I was noticing a pattern of more and more women coming to me, and they weren't suffering from physical violence, but it was more of the emotional and psychological abuse, financial abuse, isolation, things of that nature.
Yep.
And that wasn't getting any real attention in the family courts. Just to be honest, the judges weren't taking that kind of thing seriously until about a year ago. Massachusetts, where I primarily practice, we passed a new law that now defines coercive control as domestic abuse. And women can now seek a restraining order on just coercive control alone. They don't need to also show physical violence.
Okay,
Um,
that's like really amazing that that's the case because are you one of the first states that does that or?
So we're one of the few states. So we're
Yeah.
not the first, but there's not many of them. But I'm hopeful that now this is going to hopefully create some traction around the country and start becoming more of the norm. But I will tell you, even though that this is the law, it's still pretty misunderstood by the judiciary. I will say it's
Mhm.
not taken as seriously. And
Mhm.
as the attorneys, we still have the burden of having to educate a lot of the judges. We still have the
Mhm.
burden of having to bring in experts to explain a lot of the education and the research, to be able to support our position. So it's baby steps, but at least it's steps in the right direction.
So talk about just, I mean, if somebody's listening right now and they're kind of, what does that really mean? Because they may be experiencing some of this and not know that this is what it is.
Yes.
Because I know in my divorce, it was absolutely, I mean, it was abusive through the legal system, what
Yeah.
happened with me. So what are some of the signs that somebody would say, oh yeah, that's what I'm experiencing?
Yeah, so some forms of coercive control that people might resonate with are like gaslighting. So, if you know that somebody said something or did something to you, but when you're expressing that to them, they kind of dismiss you and they're like, that didn't happen that way. I didn't say that. So they kind of make you feel like you're crazy or that you
Mhm.
didn't experience, the situation in a right way. Or if they are cutting you off from finances. Like I can't tell you the number of women who come to me and they have to ask permission to use their own money, or they only get an allowance.
I
It's like,
know.
it's disgusting.
Mhm.
And these women have, a lot of them are professionally educated, but maybe they stay
Mhm.
home with the kids and they need to ask permission to buy groceries. They're isolated. So, if they want to make plans with friends or to even see their own family, they get like the silent treatment from their partner, or they're shamed or made to feel guilty about that. So they're cut off from, any real source of support. So those are some of the common signs of coercive control. Anything that diminishes someone's sense of independence or autonomy, it's to make you feel small. It's to make you feel little. When you are in a relationship with coercive control, especially over an extended period of time, people will often say, like, this person is only a shell of themselves that they used to once be.
Right.
It's like their sense of worth and self-confidence has just totally been taken away from them. Like their soul has been sucked out and they're just left with the shell of themselves.
Well, and it's hard to get out of there. I always say, if you feel like you're going crazy, most likely you are in a relationship with someone that's coercive abuse.
Yes.
But see, this is what I found, and maybe you can speak on this, is that it's so sad to me when someone calls and they have been through that and they're cut completely off from finances. So you're now going through a divorce, having to pay for an attorney that you don't have the money for, and you have to have an attorney to be able to prove, for the most part, what you have, even to survive.
Yes.
And it happens to men too. I mean, do you see this happen to men?
Yes, it does happen to men, but statistically, the research shows that it happens more often to women. They're usually, just because of the way our patriarchal society is set up, women are often more vulnerable. But I will say that women do have, at least in where I practice, and I do know in many jurisdictions this is available, there is a way to request funds from the court that are marital funds. Maybe your name's not on the account, but you can ask that your spouse has to provide you with funds to have equal levels of representation that they do. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about. And so I want to spread the word about that. That's something to look into. Like, you can ask for your spouse to pay for your own attorney's fees, especially if they have an attorney representing them.
I absolutely did, Jolee. I mean, I was representing myself for the first year, I'd say a year and a half, until finally I asked the court. And I know it was kind of interesting because the judge was like, Becky, you need to get counsel. And I'm like, well, I don't think you can order me to get counsel. You know what I mean? Like, I had researched enough about my rights in that regards, but she was highly suggesting. And I said, well, if that's what you want me to do, then you need to be able to provide me with that. And so he did have to pay for my attorney.
Yes.
And so it is something that people don't realize that you can do. You can petition the court. And again, I'm not an attorney, you are, but you're in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, but that's something that definitely research your rights to whether you can do that. And it may take a little bit of time to be awarded that, but you can go ask for it. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. And the other thing that I have found too, and the reason why I say it happens to men too, is because my husband now was left with 21 cents in the bank when she left, and he did not have access to the finances. I mean, it wasn't something that he dealt with. And so it does happen to men. However, in that case, what can they do, at least in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, what can they do quickly to be able to secure, other than getting attorney fees?
Yeah. I mean, financing options. I mean, I will just be honest with you. A lot of my clients, they're lucky enough to be able to, ask family members to get an initial retainer or, apply for a loan or a credit card in their own name. There are some, legal services that you could look into. I know in Massachusetts, where I am, there's programs called like Lawyer of the Day, where they can go and there are free attorneys there that help them fill out the motions that they need to, file to like ask for the attorney's fees. So there's different things that they can look into.
And what do you find when you're working with somebody? What is your way of empowering them? Because oftentimes if they're in these kind of relationships, they've been beaten down. They feel like, hey, I can't ask for anything. It is my fault. And yes, it's not about fault, but I often find that they're like, oh, I can't ask for that, or I can't, he's convinced me that I'm worth nothing. So I'm worth nothing. So talk about that process a little bit when you're working with people.
Yeah, there's two phrases that I find myself repeating so often when I'm meeting with clients. And one of them is, just because he says something doesn't make it true. That one I say all the time because, my clients will come to me and say, oh, well, only his name is on the house, so I know I'm not getting any portion of the house. And I'm like, why are you listening to anything that comes out of his mouth? Listen to me. I'm the attorney, and that is a marital property and you have an interest in that house. So that's something that I'm often educating them about.
Mm.
And then the other thing is, just because the other side asks for it doesn't mean they're going to get it. People ask for outrageous things all the time from the court, but it doesn't mean the judge is going to just give them everything they want. And so a lot of that, like I said, is just, education. And sometimes when I'm meeting in initial consultations with prospective clients, they don't even know they're in a coercive control relationship, but they tell me the circumstances about their case or the conditions that they've been living in about, and I'm just listening, and I'm writing notes, and I'll tell them at the end of our conversation, and I'll say, have you ever heard of coercive control before? And they're like, what's that? And then I start to talk about it, and it's like a light bulb goes off in their head, and they're like, that sounds exactly like what my relationship is. And sometimes people do resonate with the term narcissist or narcissism, because that's kind of become a more popular term in our common vernacular nowadays. But I'm tending to try to stay more away from that term, because it's become more overused in courts. And it's kind of like the term parental alienation, which became corrupted in family court too. So when judges hear narcissist, they just kind of glaze over it, and they don't take that seriously anymore. So I try to talk to them about coercive control, and they're like, oh my gosh. And then so they'll after they meet with me, they'll go online and they'll start to read about it, and they're like, yes, this is what I've been living with. And so I just think it just gives them an opportunity to learn more, and then connect with other people too, because they don't know that they feel so isolated. They don't realize that other people have been going through the same experience as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say is, I've been a coach for many, many years, and people would often say, I'm getting divorced to a narcissist. And I was like, whatever, you know what I mean? And until I experienced, now granted, I'm not a therapist. I don't diagnose anybody, but I started connecting the dots because I thought I was going crazy. And I was the one that was like, it's your fault. And you're and I was like, I don't think that that's what happened. And until I actually experienced it. And one of the things that I tell people is go study about this type of people and the way that they think, because they don't think like us.
No.
And so when they do throw in the court, and maybe you can talk about this, when they throw threats out there, it's interesting to me for the people that have been in those kind of relationships for a really long time, they have a hard time going, yeah, but that's what they said. They said they're going to take the whole house and they're going to take all of this. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that that's really what's happening. You've just always taken their word for it. Go and research and empower yourself so that you can stand up and go, no, that is not true.
Yeah. And also, you've never had an advocate in your corner before, right? And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to apply the facts to the law and argue to the judge why X, Y, or Z shouldn't happen. So, yeah. And the thing about narcissists is, you're right. Why judges get so upset about that term is because it's a DSM diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis. Right. Attorneys, we are not, medical professionals who are allowed to diagnose anybody. So if it comes out of an attorney's mouth, the judges get mad. And most true narcissists who have narcissistic personality disorder do not go to therapy to get a proper diagnosis.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that doesn't usually happen. And so what we need to do as attorneys with coercive control is we need to explain patterns of behavior to the judge.
Exactly.
So that is a much more effective strategy. And especially if we're talking about a high conflict custody situation, more than just talking about the patterns of behavior, how is that negatively affecting the co-parenting relationship or having detrimental effects on the children? So this is more about, how do we present a strategy that's going to be compelling to the court?
Yeah. And do you recommend people do a lot of documentation?
Yes. I mean, documentation's everything, right?
Yeah.
Because, we want to have all the evidence and data that we can, but then we need to dilute it into a digestible format for the judge, because we can't, prevent or provide them with thousands of pages of, our family wizard messages or text messages. We need to give it to them in a digestible format and say, okay, here's a chart. And on 13 occasions, Dad was late for drop off or pickup.
Right.
Or on these 20 occasions, Mom proposed very reasonable, alterations to the parenting time schedule for different reasons, and dad objected for no reason. So we need to have the raw data and then distract it down and spoon feed it to the judge so it's very easy for them to consume.
Yeah. Do you find people also have this misnomer that they're like, well, the judge should know everything about the case, and
Yes.
they know all about the abuse? And I'm like, the judge doesn't know anything.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. In family court, usually most of the time, 95% of cases never make it to trial, which is a good thing because trials are long and expensive and they're very emotionally draining. So most court appearances in family court are motion hearings, and they're not formal evidentiary hearings. So we don't have witness testimony, we don't have exhibits. It's literally just the attorneys and the parties, if they're not represented, telling information to the judge. And you have maybe 15 or 20 minutes to tell the judge whatever you want to hear. And it's basically a he said, she said. And so the judge has to determine in those 15 minutes, who do they believe? And that's it. And so they're hearing, 40 cases in a day, and you really don't get the opportunity to tell the whole story. They don't have the time to listen to all of the details of your case. If you want to have that opportunity, that's where you need to ask for somebody who can devote that time to your case. So in different states have different names for this. In Massachusetts, where I am, it's called like a guardian ad litem investigation. Right. Other places have something called, like a custody evaluator. But that's where a third party, sometimes it's another family court professional or, a psychologist, is appointed, and they have, 30 hours to do a whole investigation, talk to the family, talk to the doctors, the school, the children, do home visits, and they do a whole report that they can give to the judge so they have all of that information to consider.
Right.
So that's where you can really get in a more comprehensive picture, not at a 15-minute motion hearing.
Yeah, and judges need time to get to know them too. And I always say, let it unfold and them hang themselves.
That's so true. Yes.
You don't have to prove things. I know for me, I don't know if I told you, but at 21 hearings in my 3.5-year court case with somebody I was with less than 2 years. Mm-hmm. So physically with for less than 2 years. So it was a lot of hearings, and I oftentimes just had to sit back and let it unfold, and not have to prove anything other than just document everything and very factual.
Yes.
And so I think it's hard. So let's kind of talk about I know that you really are about how do we take that when you're dealing with someone that's so difficult, right? And they just don't think like a normal person and they want to do anything and everything to put into court to abuse you. What are some of the things that you counsel your people with, or talk to them about, like, okay, how can we stay in a more peaceful place? Yeah. Is it communication? Is it mindset? What is it?
Yeah, so it obviously depends on the circumstances, but one thing that I talk about, which is surprising to a lot of people, is how will we try to settle outside of court? And because, a lot of people, the advice has been for a long time, if there's been any domestic violence or any kind of power imbalance between the parties, you shouldn't try to mediate. You shouldn't try to negotiate because of that power imbalance. But one thing that this neglects to take into account is that the abuser, or the coercive controller, uses the court system to perpetuate post-separation abuse on their survivor. And so they do this in a variety of ways, filing frivolous motions, making tons of false allegations. It just drives up costs for the survivor. So if we take that tool that they have and take it away from them and put them in a mediation setting or arbitration or conciliation or one of these alternative models outside of court, that takes that away from them. And you have to do this carefully because you need to work with a neutral, a mediator or conciliator who has training in coercive control dynamics so they can, deal with those power imbalances. And I would definitely want each of the parties to be, represented by counsel in that kind of situation. But that helps to tone things down and, prevents all of that litigation abuse from occurring. If you are the survivor in that situation, you want an attorney who has experience negotiating with high conflict personalities. You definitely don't want to show all of your cards. You want to be very strategic. Maybe you want to pretend that a retirement account or something that you don't even care about is really important to you. So
Right.
you can use it as, like
Leverage.
you're going to give it up later for something that actually is important for you. So that's something that I talk to my clients about. And it's like, maybe we should try to settle this and just not deal with all the judge's biases and all of the motions and all of that. Let's try to do this in a different way. So yeah, that's just advice that isn't typically talked about in with high conflict situations. Is let's do this out of court.
Yeah. And I think too that the trap that they get into, the motions, like I've got so many, I know you and I've talked about subpoenas, right? And
Yeah.
how subpoenas can really cut through all of the mucky muck going back and forth and ping ponging in the court with discovery and then motion to compel and then discovery, motion to compel. They don't do it. And then you have to, and that is a very expensive way of doing it. Do you recommend, I mean, have you seen where people have use subpoenas and it's been able to help them leverage basically to settlement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can still mediate while you have a case filed in court. It's always available to you.
Absolutely.
So you can still be, have a litigation track and be trying to settle out of court at the same time. So you can still be sending your subpoenas and getting the documents and everything you need. And in mediation, and while you're trying to settle, if you find something in those subpoenas that they don't want exposed in court, you can use that as leverage in the settlement negotiations. Be like, look, we found this in the subpoenas, and I really don't think you want Judge Smith to find out about this. So why don't we just keep this to ourselves and settle this here and now and just be done with this so we don't even have to deal with that. So yeah.
I have to say that was one of my strategies.
Yes.
Because, and I swore I settled the day of trial. So I was convinced it was going to go to trial. But I guarantee you that is one of the subpoenas were an absolute, like that was just, it sealed the deal for me. Because it's just, when all the information gets out there, and especially with these difficult personalities, they do not want it. And so, and I'm not saying being manipulative about it. I really am not about the manipulation part of the game, but it is something that can be helpful when you're like, look, here's all the information. This is what it is. And this is what we may lose going to trial, because you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, trials are public, those are accessible public records, whereas mediation, conciliation, those are private. Everything there is, confidential. And so if, that's one of the benefits of settling out of court is that information doesn't have to be made into an exhibit and made public. So it's beneficial for all of us to come to an out of court settlement.
Absolutely. What do you say more on a personal level to your clients that, because it can be very, very stressful, and it can be very heartbreaking having to deal with the legal system and with these type of people. On a personal level, what do you say to them, how to care for themselves through that? Or do you?
No, I absolutely do. So I am a huge advocate for my clients using the right divorce professionals for the right parts of their case. They should not be coming to me as their divorce attorney for everything. I make sure that they have the right support, whether that be a therapist or a divorce coach, because I'm a very compassionate and empathetic person, but I'm not a trained therapist or counselor or divorce coach. So we have referrals that we work with a lot of great divorce coaches in our office, and I set them up with them. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a certified divorce financial analyst. So I make sure that if they have a high, net worth case, I want them to have that kind of support. They should have a mortgage broker, a real estate expert, whoever. They should be working with the right person in their own zone of genius and not coming to me for everything, because I'm too expensive. I don't know everything. So the emotional support is vital in getting through a high conflict case, because there's two costs of your divorce. There's obviously the financial cost, but there's also the emotional cost. Going through the family court system in a trial, you can't put a price tag on the emotional cost. And also, if you have children, you're still going to be connected to this person for the rest of your life. It goes beyond age 18. Your kids are going to get married one day. They might have grandchildren. And so also considering the effect on that relationship, you're going to be connected with that person no matter what. What is the cost of a trial where you're going to be airing all of each other's dirty laundry and then having to see each other at future weddings going to look like? So we definitely have those conversations.
Yeah. And do you have a story real quick that you can think of, somebody that you've worked with that I know as a coach, I love it when people are like, they came super weak. They're like, oh, I can't stand this. And now they're empowered and they're like, oh my gosh, they walked away stronger from the case because of the work that they did and what they were willing to do.
Yes, absolutely. So I had a case with a woman, and she was a victim of domestic violence, and we settled on the morning of her trial. Actually, we were prepared for a 3-day trial. We had an expert on coercive control there, a guardian ad litem ready to testify, and we were able to settle. And she actually ended up becoming a certified divorce coach because of her personal experience. And she wanted to be able to give back to women after going through her own experience. And I just touched base with her, and she was so happy. She said that her husband finally got his crap out of her house. Her business is thriving, and she was just so happy. And she had gone through a roller coaster in hell of a case. But yeah, so it was a beautiful story. So, well,
and sometimes that's exactly what happened to me. You start seeing, and you don't want anybody to go through what you've been through, or at least what I've been through. Everybody has a different story, but it's just like, this did not need to happen.
Yep.
And especially if you have a heart to give back,
yes,
we do want to give back, and we want to be able to. And that's one thing I always say this is, I love the divorce coaches and the people in this industry, because typically, at least the divorce coaches have been through it. They know exactly what it feels like, and they've learned things along the way. And now they're able to reach back and help people. Not everybody wants to do that. I mean, even me, I'm like, do I still want to stay in this divorce space? But it is so rewarding when I work with somebody, and especially when they're pro se, and I'm like, you know what? You can do this. I know you can do it. You can stand for yourself.
It's great. They take that pain and turn it into some purpose, right? It's like they have a reason for it, and they can do something with it, turn it into something actionable. So yeah, it's so meaningful.
I know. I love that. And I love that you as an attorney are open. I know not all attorneys, but this is something to ask if you're going to go interview and work with an attorney, for them to be an advocate for you, to be able to have resources to say, hey, this is somebody I trust, that you can go to as a therapist or a divorce, coach, or with your mortgage. Because there's so many, I bring a lot of people that support a lot of people through divorce, because I want them to have options.
Yes.
I mean, maybe one person may not be right for the other person. And I like that you have the holistic idea of handling that and saying, hey, that's not my lane.
Exactly.
Somebody else.
Yeah. Because divorce touches every other area of your life. It ripples out to everywhere, and not one person can know everything. So we want to have people that we know, we trust, we've worked with before, ready for our clients when the time arises for it.
Yeah, I love it. So you're only working Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So, and eventually I'm going to have a whole thing on my website that people can go to, and they can contact that. But I do have, let me just turn on, you can get a hold of Jolee by going to foundationfamilylaw.com. So if you are in the Rhode Island or the Massachusetts area, now do you do consultations?
Yep. Virtually. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So they can reach out to you, and also all of your contact information, which you have a lot of different websites and a lot of different places to find you. And you also have a podcast.
I do. Yep. So I co-host a podcast called Divorce Detox, and I co-host it with a divorce coach. Her name is Lisa Happ. We work on a lot of cases together. So please feel free to check it out. And you're going to be a guest on it soon, Becky.
I know. I'm so excited. I need to look at my list, because I guest on a lot of different podcasts, and then, obviously I do my own. So yes, it is definitely part of my life. And I love that it's not a competitive space, because we all are touching all these different people. And I have to say, for people that are listening, they're going through divorce, I am connected to so many people, and I'm sure you are as well, that are just begging to be able to reach those who need us.
Exactly.
And I find that it's usually through family members, right? Like
Yes.
family members are
Mhm.
like, you need to talk to Becky like now.
Yep.
Family or
Mhm.
friends. And I appreciate that a lot. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And like I said, I always like to finish the show off with one question is what does divorcing strong mean to you?
To me, divorcing strong is, if possible, keeping control over the terms of your divorce. And to me, if possible, not having a stranger determine the outcome of your case. And that to me is not going to trial and have a judge deciding all of the terms of the most important things in your life, your finances, your home, your children. When you settle, you're not going to get the best case scenario. No one gets the best case scenario in your divorce. But when you choose the terms, you are choosing them. No one's forcing you to. You're choosing it with, your whole heart. You're choosing it with your mind. So you're being empowered to choose the terms of your divorce. So that's what divorcing strong means to me.
I love that. It is true because people don't realize that they have that much power
Yes,
and
exactly.
influence over there,
Mhm,
especially when you're dealing with someone that's cohesive or coercive
mhm.
control, because
Yes.
you really do. And that is the most rewarding thing, to see somebody wake up and start connecting the dots. And I tell them all the time, like, when you study how these people think, then it's less about you, and you can remove yourself and then just get to work, make decisions that you need to for you and your family,
Yeah,
and move on.
exactly, and be happy.
Yeah, be happy. There
That's what
is
it's all
happiness on the
about.
other side. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jolee, for coming on. And please reach out to her if you're in those areas, and have a conversation with her and work with her if that's possible. So thanks so much. Hang on 1 second. I'll take you out. Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Divorcing Strong. You know what I realize is that there are still amazing, amazing people out there. And it is true what I just said is that they are begging to see if they can find. We have podcasts, we have books, we have resources, we are in groups. There's a huge amount of groups of people that are in the divorce space, wanting and desiring to support people through this process, because it is one of the hardest things that you'll go through in your life. However, it doesn't have to be something that destroys you. It really can make you stronger. So thanks so much for joining us on another episode of Divorcing Strong, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to the Divorcing Strong podcast. This episode is sponsored by Only Subpoenas, where we make subpoenas simple, powerful, and 100% compliant. If you're having a hard time getting the information you need to settle for a fair and equitable divorce, let us help you. Whether you're an attorney or you're navigating divorce on your own, subpoenas can uncover the truth, secure the evidence you need, and level the playing field. To see how we can help, book an appointment by visiting our website at onlysubpoenas.com.